All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:31. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for the town of Wakefield for March 21st, 2025. Just a reminder to everybody on the meeting to remain muted, and if you are asked to speak or would like to speak, unmute, speak clearly, as live transcription is being done. And this will be posted online and on WCAT. Item number 2 is attendance. Present, myself, Joseph Anderson, Traffic Advisory Chair. John Connors cannot make it today, so he'll be absent. Dan and Lois Benjamin, I see you on. Good morning. Joe Conway, is he here yet?
He's not. He has a conflict. He'll be coming on a little late.
Okay. I have Matt Keeley, Steve Mayo, and Bill Renault. All right. Item number 3, Dan, if you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll swap it over to Lois.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lois. Dan, it was good to actually get a break from your voice for a little bit, so that was good. We've been putting too much on you.
The hand's a little shaky now, so.
Item number 4 is the approval of the meeting minutes. Matt, I did adjust your name. I did a little Gaelic research and I looked into Keeley. So do you want me to tell you what I found?
Yeah, sure.
Slender and graceful. So you can take that to the bank.
Wow.
One out of 2 ain't bad.
Matt. That's outstanding.
Bad 500 there.
So we hope to not spell your name wrong in the future meeting minutes. But outside of that, do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, the meeting minutes have been approved for the January 10th, 2025 meeting. Item number 5 is public engagement. This is where any member of the public can comment or ask questions for the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting. I would just ask that you keep it to something that isn't on the agenda. So if you have something that's a specific agenda item, we will give more public participation time at that time. So if you would raise your hand on Zoom or physically, if you don't have an icon to do that, and we'll call on you. Anybody for public engagement that, we have Matthew Jewett. Good morning, Matthew. Matt, if you can hear
My
me.
bad. All good. Wrong button.
No problem. Good morning. Anybody else for public engagement? I do have one email submission. And it's from a Carol Lilly of Howard Street in Wakefield. She asked about crosswalks near Most Blessed Sacrament Church, 1155 Main Street. She reports that cars don't stop or even slow down at the existing crosswalk there. Wants to know about how to get a sign. They're approaching a crosswalk or a flashing pedestrian sign there. She says neighbors are complaining that every time they try to cross the church, the post office, Chibo Cafe, pizza shop, bus stop, etc., that cars aren't stopping. She reports that the crosswalk is faded. Bill, any updates there on repainting? Or I know we've had some changes in that area of bus stop improvements and relocations. So is there anything that we should get back to her on?
Well, so we're going to be reconstructing the roadway in a year. That's definitely happening, but we can do something as an interim. I think obviously it's a high pedestrian generated area, so I would be happy to do something. I'm looking at the street view now.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe at least a sign. It actually doesn't even have a crosswalk sign.
Okay.
There. So maybe we just put in just the regular standard crosswalk signs for now. I mean, we need to do them anyway. So,
Mr. Mayor, is that something that the town council would like as a memo from us?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Since it's not an agenda item, but I would be comfortable taking a vote on it and forwarding that to town council. So if somebody wants to make a motion to, in the interim, add pedestrian signs there to the existing crosswalk at 1155 Main Street, we can do that. And then Bill, you'll have other improvements as you know, the road construction continues there.
yeah, exactly. Yep. So moved. I'll move that.
Okay. I hear a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor on the motion?
Aye.
Okay. I will send along a memo to town council. Thank you. That was an easy one. We like those.
Yeah.
Next is item 6, intersection review. This is a review of the intersection of the driveway to 599 North Ave and North Avenue. So this is something that has become an issue over the last few years. The last 2 in particular, which is the most complete data set we have available for our crash history. We've had 7 crashes there. They've varied from just property damage to personal injury. And it's trending to the point where when we're dispatched to a crash on North Ave, it's far less likely to be at the intersection of 128 and Walkersbrook Road, and far more likely to be at the intersection of this driveway. And I'll share my screen just so the public and anybody else that's on the meeting can just familiarize themselves with the location that we're talking about. Everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
So there's essentially 2 driveways to Lakeside Office Park and the Lakeside Inn and the various businesses there. One driveway comes out toward Power Parkway, the intersection of the Subaru and GMC dealership, and then out toward 128 in Walkersbrook. The main driveway is where the savings bank is. It's also 2-way traffic. And then Willard Road is really not a driveway for this development per se, but it does connect through another access drive on the back end. So I think what's unique about this area here is I can just show my screen here. We have 2 lanes of travel, and now this is an older Google Maps. So now we have the bike lane that runs along the side. The roadway's been shifted a little bit, so the double yellow is a little further over. We have 2 travel lanes. One's a straight in the turn lane to go into the 2 car dealerships. One's a straight in the turn lane to either go through the intersection or right onto Power Parkway. And then we have the bike lane. The conflict point is at this driveway here. And in our research of the data set, most of the crashes, actually strike that, the crashes are kind of 50-50 with either vehicles exiting across both lanes of travel to take a left onto North Ave heading south, and then vehicles turning in from North Ave already heading south, taking a left across the 2 lanes and now the bicycle lane. So as anybody that's been driving for a while knows, whenever you're crossing 2 lanes of traffic, I think the issue becomes one lane of travel will stop to let you in. The other one won't perceive that there's traffic that's crossing, and that's where the crash occurs. So we don't have a particular I don't know, tool at this point to try to mitigate that. So I wanted to bring it up for discussion. I think Matt, Kaylee, and I talked a little bit offline about doing a small scope study there about turning movements and how much actual traffic is utilizing that drive versus the main driveway there. You know, one option obviously would be to restrict left turns in and out of that driveway so they don't conflict with the 2 travel lanes and the bicycle lane, and make that a one-way out only. But how does that impact the main driveway further down, which is wider? And I'll share my screen a little bit here. So a little further down by the bank, we have a bigger drive. There's more site visibility, it looks like, and there's only one lane of travel to contend with turning in or out. But again, this would become obviously busier, as that would be the only way that traffic would be able to enter and exit the park. So I turn it over to the group for discussion.
Yeah, I think you covered most of what we talked about, Lieutenant, but just wanted to share a couple of things. When you first told me about it, I was first surprised at the number of crashes. But then when I was looking at them, I was expecting there to be more crashes related to queuing from the signal and people trying to pull out through a queue. But that didn't seem to be the case. So, that raised my concern a little bit because the pattern wasn't quite as obvious. But it just seemed in general that turning left in and left out of there is problematic. So, I think looking at a turn restriction makes sense, but I wouldn't want to take all the volume from that driveway and push it down to the other one and overload that driveway or create more internal circulation issues. So that's why I was recommending doing some counts to see how much volume would be redistributed with the turn restriction or closure of that driveway. So I'd recommend doing morning and evening turning movement counts at both of the driveways that serve the development.
Makes sense to me.
How many days of a study would you like to do, Matt, on that?
I mean, typically we only do one, but we could do a couple. I think it would make sense, to do midweek, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's probably when
I
we
think
have
that
the
would be
most.
good. There's a lot of shared space and lease space there, and we have Attorney McGrail on with us, so we'll talk to him in a few. But I know that there's a number of businesses there, and I'm sure they have different hours, and people working from home some days and not others. So I'd like to get as accurate of a look as we can.
Yeah.
So I think 3 days midweek would be helpful in doing that. Bill, what do you have for us? Anything?
No, I was just going to suggest we definitely look at both driveways. So, yep, I can move forward with getting that
Okay.
taken care of.
All right. And this is something that's going to happen over the course of, multiple meetings. This, to look at what the options are. First, I think we need to look at the data there and see exactly what we have. Dan and Lois.
Yeah, I think we got that new building beside the KSC coming in too, and that's gonna add to it. I don't know how many units that is, but
40, I think.
Yeah, I think around 40 for that. That's a good point, Tim. Yep, it's becoming a busy area there. Any other comments from members of the traffic advisory before I turn it over to members of the public?
I don't think it makes sense.
All right, I'll turn it over to Attorney McGrail first. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Lieutenant, members of the committee. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail. I represent actually the various ownership groups that comprise what is known as Lakeside Office Park. I think, I've spoken with my clients about this, and they're very cognizant, or they have concerns over accidents and public safety, as everybody does. So they're more than happy to cooperate with the study, but we would like to be kept informed and participate in that as much as possible. And I would like to point out that if I could share my screen, something that is important to consider here. And it's not letting me share my screen, Lieutenant.
You good now?
Oh, here we go. 1 second. There you go. So Lakeside Office Park is, it's referred to as Lakeside Office Park, but what is of tremendous concern with any change to this curb cut? This is here, if you can see my cursor, where the curb cut is. The properties at Lakeside Office Park are all separate properties and separate buildings. So you've got 595 North Ave, which is one office park building, 599, which is another, and then the hotel. And they share this common driveway, which goes in, which you referred to. But 607 is served by its own driveway, which is the subject curb area that you're talking about. And, honestly, people do cut through and kind of mishmash. But from a marketability standpoint in the future, if the owner, this is owned separately. So if the owner of this goes to sell this, to lose this access could be extremely detrimental to the value of this property. It could actually landlock it. So, our goal would be to not have it restricted or closed in any way, but to look at through this study, other options that might address the accident concerns, such as the bike lane. The bike lane is a new ad, and maybe some of these accidents have happened before. I know there was a lot of shrubbery here at one point that my client has now removed. And my office is in 607, so I'm extremely familiar with this entrance and exit. And I did notice that there was a site restriction with those shrubs, and those have now all been taken away, and not too long ago. So, maybe some of the accidents have occurred after, but I would respectfully request that it be looked at carefully, which I'm sure it will be, that we participate and that we do everything possible to make some adjustments in order to not restrict this. Because again, in essence, you're just landlocking 607. It would have effect. So if it happened that 607 got landlocked, you would have to have easements going across, and we don't even know if we can get those implemented legally to make it work. So we'll work with you as you move forward, Lieutenant. We might actually get our own traffic consultant involved on this. I'm going to talk to my clients about that.
Okay.
But I just wanted to stress the potential detriment effect it can have on 607 North Ave.
No, I appreciate that. That's all great information for us to consider there. And this is something that's obviously we're trying to mitigate something that's happened well after the fact of this being developed. It's been there for years. So if this were
and if we can make adjustments there, or changes maybe with the driveway, or controls or whatever, again, my client is more than happy to work with the town, because it's their goal to provide a safe environment for the people that occupy the property as well and use it.
Sure. Bill, do you have something for us?
Yeah, just a quick question. So Brian, like, were the shrubs removed as part of the sidewalk widening? Is that did we do that?
No, I think my client did it, Bill.
Do you know when that happened? Just so
I'll find out.
Yeah, that'd be good, just so we can compare it with the traffic study.
And Brian, another question on that. Thanks for pointing that out, because I'd like to look back at the dates as well. Is there any issue with the Lakeside Inn sign, in Lakeside Park sign that was behind the shrubbery? I'm looking at an aerial, a street view from October of 2022. So I'm assuming those are the shrubs that we're talking about. But I was just curious if there's any issue with visibility past the sign, the monument sign.
No, I use that driveway all the time, and I don't have.
Okay.
I never had an issue with the sign. I had a big issue with the shrubs.
Okay.
The shrubs, you had to kind of peek around. So that,
Yeah.
We can still have them do at least a site distance evaluation too. I think this makes sense. Even with the sign, then maybe you don't have it, but other folks do. You know what I mean?
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we can have that done too.
Does a bike lane go past this property all the way to Quannapowitt?
It starts to, it continued through here.
Yeah. And, the other thing I'd like to stress, and I think everybody knows this.
No, it doesn't actually. I'm sorry, Brian. So it turns into a share road once we get to the 2 lanes. So it ends, I think it ends at this driveway, actually.
Like right there.
Or right around here. Yeah, right around there.
The other thing is, and I think everybody knows it, as far as pedestrian safety around the lake, my client is probably the most cooperative property owner. We have people walking through this parking lot all day and night long. Everybody cuts through, and he's amenable to that. He's never made an issue. I get aggravated by it, because when I'm trying to pull in my parking space for work, a lot of the people walking the lake give me dirty looks, like I'm getting in their way, and they're the ones that are trespassing across a lot. But it's all fine. What happens is most people, when they walk the lake, what they'll do is they'll go down Willard or cut through, and they they go through this little area here, there's a path that then takes them out on the corner Parkway. So some people go all the way around, but a number of people cut through all day long, which is fine.
Any other comments from the public? You can raise your hand. Last call for public comment on this agenda item. All right, Brian, I appreciate that. That was some good information for us to consider. And what we'll do is we'll do a study for 3 days midweek, include some sightline distances too, to get an idea of exactly what's going on there with the existing signage and any shrubbery that may still exist. And we'll table this to another meeting and see what options are available to us.
And I'll find out when those were removed, and I'll let Bill Renault know.
Great.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Item number 7 is a traffic calming application update for the Pine Street area. I'll turn it over to Bill Renault, who has the results of a study that was done there with some recommendations. Bill?
Yeah, so we conducted a traffic study looking at speeds and also looking at sight distance at a couple of locations. So we looked at the Pine and one sec here, I call these up. Wasn't the side street off the top of my head. We looked at Pine and Warren and Pine and Lee. So sight distances were better at Pine and Lee. So the recommendation was to add a crosswalk at that location, which we will move forward with a design for. So that's kind of where we are, as long as the commission or the traffic advisory committee here is in agreement.
Okay. Any other comments from members of TAC on this study review?
I think we would want to still make sure we have some advanced warning signs, though, kind of towards the crest of Pine, just to be safe.
And I think from us going out there, Bill, I think that was their biggest concern was people are crossing there regardless whether there's a crosswalk or not. And we had concerns about where a safe crosswalk would even go, because it's kind of it's an interesting neighborhood with some sightline issues with the way the hill is, that the approach from the other side. So I think having those advanced warning signs maybe even out further than we would typically put them, or if it doesn't meet the manual, maybe we double it up, if that's appropriate.
Sure. Yeah, so I think so this would probably go to the council as well, just to okay the signs.
Correct.
So I'll give you a hand writing that memo if you want, Joe.
Okay. And then I'll, if nobody else from TAC has anything, I'll turn it over to Andrea and Stephanie and anybody else that's on here. I know they've worked pretty hard at trying to come up with a solution for, majority of the issue was crossing kids to school. That's when there's the most pedestrian traffic, and there's only really one way to get out of those neighborhoods and get over to the schools. So, we were reluctant to put in a crosswalk at a place that we felt was unsafe, because people feel that if they're in a crosswalk, they're safe, which isn't always the case. So we wanted to make sure that we had at least something that engineers recommended to be the best location for it. So it gives motorists enough of a warning that there's going to be people crossing there without having kids, even though majority are elementary school age and they're always attended. People feel safe in a crosswalk, which is not always the case, as we know. But Andrea, I'll turn it over to you, and then anybody else that has any questions or comments.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Hi, Bill. Thank you for the work that you've put in this. I am representing the north side of Pine Street. Stephanie's here representing the south side of Pine Street. Just a couple questions and follow-on comments. So I'm really happy about a potential crosswalk. That's amazing. What about, so I read the data study, there's no speed signs anywhere. And currently, I think it is a default 30 miles per hour.
Mhm.
Is there any potential option to put in signs at a lower speed limit? For example, I was just on Main Street crossing into Melrose, and on Main Street near Billy's, it is 25 miles per hour sign posted, and
Yep.
there's no signs posted on Pine Street. That was my one comment question. The other is, and Stephanie can talk to this more, is the crossing area on Kendrick to Kendrick from on Kendrick side across Pine Street, if that was taken into consideration at
That
all.
wasn't, yeah, that wasn't, we didn't discuss that on our walk, so that wasn't something we included within the study.
Okay. I think Stephanie saw someone down there taking or doing some data evaluation down there, and that's why I asked if that was also taken into consideration. Okay, one other comment, and then I'll turn it over to Stephanie. If a crosswalk is put in, what does that mean for the, I don't know my directions right now. There's only one sidewalk on one side of the street. Does that mean there needs to be a landing put in or some sort of?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, we'd have to do that. I mean, we have to put the handicap ramps in for any crosswalk that we do, even though you don't have pedestrian facilities. I just put something on the corner, like a little landing spot.
Okay. Is it simply a crosswalk or is there any
Curb ramps. So we're gonna put the curb ramps in, the ADA curb ramps, and then we do
Okay.
signage for the crosswalk itself. And then we talked about an advanced warning sign at the hill for folks that are coming down.
okay. No
so-
lights, right? There's no like crossing.
I wasn't planning to do that unless the committee thinks it makes sense, but I wasn't planning on doing that based on the study. So, I mean, we're seeing speeds for the most part, you know, are below the speed limit. You know, to put signs in the questions you're asking, so that's a whole different mechanism there. So speeds regulated through the state as well as the town, so it's kind of a combo. We didn't elect to adopt the law that would reduce all the speed limits in town to 25. That wasn't recommended by, actually, I don't even think we really discussed it here at the TAC. But I know that the police chief isn't really a big fan of moving that, and it's really difficult to enforce. So it becomes an issue for the police to even enforce it. So, you know, we don't post signs. We can do warning signs. So it's like a yellow sign that tells you what the speed limit is. But the white speed limit signs are only posted on streets that have not the statutory speed limit. The help me out, Matt. What's it?
Special speed.
The prima facie?
No, the
Oh.
a special speed regulation that's been approved at Mass DOT, so that it wouldn't be the prima facie speed, which is, if you remember back when you did your driver's ed, they talked about if you don't see a speed limit, you know the speed limit is 30 miles an hour and thickly settled. If it's not thickly settled, it's 40 miles an hour. So we're not able to post that by state law, so we can't just start putting up speed limits signs wherever we choose to. So it's a whole other process that we have to go through. And, you know, really what we end up finding is, you know, I'm looking at this, you know, we're really not seeing a speeding issue on the street. I mean, I think the geometry doesn't really lend itself to folks to be able to fly through here. So I don't think we would really be recommending anything on speed.
I think the problem with this street is that people may not be technically exceeding the speed limit on the, you know, on average, but they're going a little too close to the speed limit for the type of road it is, right? Especially around those peak hours where you guys are trying to cross your kids to
Yeah.
school.
Yep,
They might be
100%. Yeah.
They might be going 28 miles an hour, which technically we can't enforce, but it's inappropriate for somebody to be going through a neighborhood like that at 28. It just doesn't really lend itself to be going that fast. So we run into this issue a lot in neighborhoods that are similar to yours, where it looks fast, and 28 miles an hour is fast when you're crossing your kids.
It feels fast too. It doesn't just look,
Yes.
it feels
It feels,
fast.
yeah.
yes,
Yep.
when you're standing on the side of the road, you have a totally different appreciation for speed.
It's true, very true.
So,
Yes.
no doubt. Stephanie, what do you have for us?
Well, one, thank you so much for doing this study for the crosswalk. Andrea, you answered a lot of, or asked a lot of questions that I already had. One of them, I live on the south side of Pine, so I live at the bottom of that curve, but it has some low visibility. So I believe it was previously discussed about clearing some of the brush. And I just wanted to circle back on that if that was something just.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah, that's something we'll take care of. Yeah.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So that'll at least broaden the visibility on that curve. Okay, terrific. And then will the crosswalk signs be kind of posted in both directions so people going up the hill will know that there's a crosswalk? Okay, great.
Yep, yeah, and then we'll do a warning sign letting folks know that there is a crosswalk. So at the crest of the hill.
Yep,
So people
okay.
that are coming over, they'll know, you'll have an advanced sign saying, crosswalk ahead.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much.
Just
Yeah,
so
and we could probably do that on both, to be honest with you, even at the curve too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that might make sense, folks, if you're all in agreement. So we'd have kind of a, crosswalk ahead sign in both directions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The more signage.
The more signs.
better. Yeah. What is the timeline?
Well, it's a smaller project, so I'll talk to the Public Works Director about doing this as an internal project rather than through our contracted work. So that would speed it up. So hopefully, I'd be targeting spring as long as the council's supportive of us installing it.
So what I would ask you two and anybody else that's in favor to do is to either call or email or write to town council, especially if you see it on the agenda coming up soon. And I'll try to remember to send it out to you when we do have a date on their next agenda. I'll try to get it on as quick as I can. And if you could either show up for public participation or email them in support of it and explain what you've done and what it means to you, I'm sure that will go a long way with them to be able to make a decision on it. I don't think that they're going to have a difficult time with this one, but it's always good to have support on it and know that that what we're recommending is supported by the neighborhood as well.
Yep.
That's a town council meeting, not a traffic meeting, is it?
Yep.
Next,
It'll be a town council meeting. Yeah. So any signs that we install, we basically make a recommendation to the town council. Town council approves it, and then
okay. The next town council, you think, or
No, it won't be Monday. So the next one is
Monday.
Yep. So that agenda is already closed. So it'd probably be the first meeting in April, I'm guessing.
Okay, great. And that's a live meeting, not a Zoom. That's what you're saying. Just want to make sure.
It's kind of a hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can send comments either through a letter to them and they'll read it in the record, or beyond to provide it. There's a bunch of different ways. But you can hit me up on the side. I can.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayo.
Yeah, I wanted to, I can answer that question. The town council has 2 scheduled meetings in April. One is April 14th. One is April 28th. The second one is April 28th. We are in budget seasons, and the 14th will be the last budget meeting. That's a pretty packed meeting right now. But Joe and Bill, if you get something to me, I think this should be fairly easy, particularly with some neighborhood help. So if we can squeeze it onto the 14th, I will. Those meetings are, again, they're hybrid, so they're either in person at WCAT Studios, which is behind the existing high school, or Zoom is great, and that's just as easy. And I'm not even sure that I think if you have something written in the record, that probably would suffice.
Okay.
Perfect. This looks like, you know what? I hate to say this. This looks like a no-brainer, but I've been fooled before.
I think someone will be there. We'll make sure. Zoom or
it always helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Stephanie, any other comments?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Good.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. Any other public comment or questions on this agenda item?
Sorry, one more question. The brush is going to be in the spring as well?
Yeah, I'm going to fast track that.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
So
awesome.
as they're starting to leaf out, we'll have them cut everything back.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the crosswalk? Let me phrase this right, Bill. So at the intersection of Pine and
Lee.
Pine
And Lee.
that was the closest one. Pine and Lee with crosswalk ahead signage and crosswalk signage at the crosswalk in both directions. Am I missing anything?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we will send that to town council, hopefully get on that April, what was it, 14th meeting? And,
April 14th, yeah.
we'll see you there. And I will let you know if we got on that agenda, or if it's the later one, so I'll send it out to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you folks.
All right, the next is item 8, accessory dwelling unit proposed bylaw. Bill and I talked a little bit about this offline. So as many know, there have been some changes to the accessory dwelling unit law in Massachusetts, and the town of Wakefield is considering adjustments to the bylaws. And one of the issues that has come up is parking. So Bill, would you like to take the lead on this?
So Sam Elliott, our senior planner's here too.
Yep.
She's on the road.
I'm on North Ave. Don't hate me. But yeah, I'm happy to. I'll be in the office in like 3 minutes. But Bill, if you want to give a quick overview, and then I can pull up my presentation when I get there in like 3 to 5 minutes.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So basically, situation. We asked Sam to come. So the law essentially allows accessory dwelling units to be by right on all residential parcels in town. One of the pieces in the law talks about specifically parking spaces and how you can regulate it. You're only allowed to have one in areas that are not within a half a mile of transit in any way. So we have a lot of that in town. So the big piece here for us, I mean, there's nothing we can really change or do, but it's more informative for us because I'm expecting this to be an issue for us as these build out. It may not be this year or next year, but within, I would say, the next 5 years, we're going to start to see a lot more issues with parking related to, you know, the development of these. So essentially, these are allowed to be developed without a parking space. And we all know that people that move in will have a car. So we'll, this is by bus stops. So it really adds a large amount of the town. So we'd only be requiring a parking space on small sections of the town. And I can kind of pull it up to show. Well,
yep.
This may be quicker.
Yeah,
than...
Bill, do you have the map, Bill?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm going to pull it up.
Thanks.
To find the email. So, do you see the map that's on my screen? My cursor?
Yep, we have it.
All right. So basically, everything that is highlighted in either green or in purple are areas where we would not be able to require a parking space to be done. So you'll notice most of downtown, all on Main Street. I mean, essentially, I would say this is probably 70% of the town where we wouldn't be able to do that. So I just can't see how this in the future doesn't become an issue for our committee. So I just wanted to highlight it to us, honestly, just so everybody knows that this will be an ongoing thing. And I'm sure folks will be starting to roll in their ADU applications very soon.
So Bill, let me just hear that again. So everything in purple and green, we currently cannot require any parking spaces.
Yep. Right.
Okay.
And so these are regulated to only be 900 square feet. So, I mean, realistically, it's going to be 1 or 2 bedroom units. That's what they'll end up being. Folks will have cars, and all of these areas, we have no mechanism to require a parking space. So I'm thinking it'll turn into something more of down the road of a lot more parking regulation discussion and how we handle that going forward.
And with this MBTA Communities Act, are we able to implement a bylaw that requires or no?
Just quick clarification. This is not MBTA Communities. It's
Yes.
They're separate. It is attached to MBTA transit stops. But no, we cannot require a parking spot if any part of the parcel is within half a mile Thank you, of a transit stop. So that's why anything, even if a corner of the parcel is in one of those radii that are on this map, we can't require anything.
So, yeah, so I mean, I can't see how this doesn't become an issue. I mean, if you have 4 or 5 units that, you know, get developed, I mean, right off the bat, they don't have a parking space, they're not required to, they won't be built with one. And we really don't have a mechanism, I mean, to even have reviews. So it's a quick, this will be essentially like a quick development that can start popping up all over the place. And we already get a lot of these anyway. You know, for you know, adding bedrooms and adding different pieces through the ZBA that comes to my office. But I'm expecting this to be an issue for us down the road.
Well, I guess, and I want to let Sam get settled because she just she sprinted up the stairs, and I would be out of give her a minute. But I'm curious, and I know that she's in touch with many other cities and towns that are in a similar boat, and she has some expertise in this area. But what are other cities and towns doing about this? How are they getting creative? Are they in the same position we're in, and they don't know exactly what to do? What's the consensus?
Yeah, so everybody's pretty much in the same situation. We are all required to, well, I mean, technically we're not required to enact anything because it's legal right now. So it creates kind of this weird situation. The thing that we're looking at adding and regulating is no short-term rentals. So in theory, you won't have that overturn, which can, I don't know how much it would contribute to traffic. But that's really the most that we can regulate at this point. I can reach out to some other towns and see what they're doing. But I don't know anybody as of yet that I've talked to that's shifting how they do anything with permits or anything, you know, with adding parking permits or anything like that.
I mean, I think that's what's going to probably end up happening here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it may that they're just not doing it now because it's not an issue because it just got enacted.
But, you know, I think maybe something we can look at, and Stam and I can maybe try to do this, is track as these things are coming in and where they are. Try to see if we start to run into parking problems on those streets, so we have an idea how many ADUs were added, and then see if we need to be proactive in other neighborhoods. I mean, we might have to think about doing that in the future, but it's just something that, you know, unfortunately just got thrown into our laps, and, you know, with not a lot of forethought or public input, so.
So I think it's important for the town to know, Mr. Mayo and anybody else from town council and the FinCom, that in the future, so we have 2 great part-time parking enforcement officers. They're awesome. They do a great job. Primarily, they focus on the downtown area to create turnover for our business district, right? That's their primary focus. And then they handle residential issues, you know, they keep people honest and make sure that, you know, in the past it was people commuting to work and trying to circumvent paying at the MBTA stations. They would park in neighborhoods that were time restricted, and we see a little bit less of that now, where people are working more remote and hybrid. But they address parking issues throughout the town. But we currently only have really one road in town that's resident parking only, that has a permit for resident parking only. That's Armory Street. That has to do with the Galvin Middle School, to prevent that from being clogged up with parents that don't want to get stuck in the queue. And you know, that was part of that whole redevelopment of the Galvin Middle School. In order for them to enforce that, and there are some other permits, there's merchant permits, and there's a few other streets in the downtown area, resident permits. But in order for them to do that, they have to physically go by and scan the license plate to see if there's a permit. We use a system called Passport. It's a good system, but it requires a lot of our 2 essentially retirees that do a great job, but they're part-time, they're retirees, and they have to physically walk up and down the street and scan the license plate to see if it's in violation. Now, they've been at it for a while, so they know generally which cars belong on what street, because there's only a handful of them, and which one looks out of place from the other ones that may not have a permit. And it's been there for 3 or 4 hours, so they're beyond the time restriction. So they have a way of filtering that. But in the future, we would need to add additional parking enforcement. We would also have to upgrade to a system that incorporates plate readers, and I'm sure you see them in other communities. The MBTA and their paid spots, they use them. They're two kind of like cameras that are on the hood or the trunk of their parking enforcement vehicle, and they scan all the vehicles that are on that road, and it tells them immediately if one's in violation of a time restriction or doesn't have a parking pass. That's going to be a financial consideration because that system is obviously more expensive to implement and to maintain annually. And there would obviously be more training and more equipment that we would need to facilitate that. So just, I don't know, coming attractions, I guess, Steve?
Yes. I'm sorry, someone just jumped in on me. That's the problem with having an open door policy.
Not a problem. I was just, I was ending my thought with coming attractions of what this may mean for us.
Yeah, and
yeah. This isn't going to be Steve's issue, I don't think, right, Steve?
If you
But
could
in
get
my
the-
heart, Bill, in
right
my
there.
heart it will be.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I
No,
know,
no, I agree. And I think, Sam, I read somewhere, and it may have been in one of the original, or maybe comments on the ADU law. This right now is just for MBTA stations, rail commuter stations, not bus stops, correct?
No, the
No.
definition explicitly states anywhere you embark or disembark upon transit that is, I don't know, I forgot but it's embark or disembark upon any transit, including buses, subways, commuter
Alright.
rails. That's what it is currently. I don't know if it's going to change. You know, that's possible. I've had
So
literally, there were 5
actually,
iterations of.
these circles are, the purple circles should be bigger. Because what about bus stops you have all around town?
Well, that's the green. So the green is the bus stops.
Oh, the green is bus, so it's basically the whole town.
The whole time.
Yeah. So the green are,
yeah.
green are bus stops, and then the purple-ish color, periwinkle, are the MBTA stops, which we're all familiar with from MBTA communities, or the MBTA commuter rail stops. I'm sorry. So as of right now, pretty much yes. Almost, I would say like what, close to over 75% of the town is going to have a 0 parking requirement. If they're going to be building one of these units, because even all of the ones that are on the edge of these circles or these radii, that have a teeny tiny little sliver of their parcel within that radii are technically included as within that radii per the definition from EOHLC.
Okay. And Bill, like many homes in Wakefield, mine included, particularly when, you know, all the kids are home and all the kids are home for college, right?
Yeah.
Tandem parking, there's nothing against tandem parking.
Nope.
No.
No, I think we got to allow, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't restrict any of that type of stuff. And we haven't really done that for most of these smaller developments anyway, honestly.
Okay.
Even ones that have had, you know, extra units and whatnot. I mean, the good example is the one over here on Lafayette, you know, right across from Town Hall. They have a series of parking spaces that doesn't meet really any of the parking lot criteria. So it's, yeah, we're allowing all of it. I just, in areas that are tight, I see it like the downtowns areas. Yeah. That's where it's going to be the problem. Like, I don't think necessarily as you get into Greenwood and stuff as big of an issue necessarily, but you know, we say that now, and you know, if we have streets that we've restricted parking on, you know, now it's spilling into neighborhoods. It's just going to turn into all of that snowballing effect, you know. And I think, you know, we've already seen a lot of development down here in downtown, you know, with these types of added units anyway. But you would still now every one of these lots in all likelihood is going to have something though.
Yeah, and I also have concerns about snow removal. We've been fairly lucky the past few years, but we're going to have an area where it's going to time that it's not going to be so lucky.
Yep.
I think that there was a garage proposed years ago that probably would have taken a lot of the heat off, but something happened with that, Lieutenant. I don't know what it was. But,
I can't recall. We've dealt with so many issues between then and now that I exhausted.
Yeah, no, I think this is something we need to be aware of, and I think that it is going to affect certainly community policing in those areas. So yeah, that's something that has to be on everybody's radar.
And I can
Yeah.
also reach out to the planners listserv and see what other places are doing. So far as nobody has actually talked about anything specific, just that they're frustrated.
Right.
Because a lot of the constituents are concerned. I mean, and it's valid. But I'm happy to report back on anything I find out.
Thank you. And I think it's important for everybody to know is that this is not a Wakefield rule.
Right.
This isn't what Wakefield is proposing. This is being top down to us.
Yep.
So you know, I'll stick up for the messengers on this one. This is don't shoot the messenger. Just like 48.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing when you think about it that like the regulation came out like a week before the law went into effect, right? The effective
Yeah.
date.
Yeah.
I mean,
It came out on the 31st, so not even a week. It was like 3 days.
yeah, I mean, so there's no way for the community to even react to it. I mean, it's awful, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just not how you should be managing.
Well, thank you for bringing this forward to this group anyway.
Steve, do you know where we are with the shuttle service? Is that's still going to be online with?
Well, I think we're yes, but that was more going to be working with 200 Howitt and those other developments that frankly would not qualify for the ADUs. Could we? They're not going to be going to all these green neighborhoods, so that's maybe help somewhere in the downtown, but I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam, thank you, and we'll be in touch as we find out more on this issue and see what we can do, and we'll adapt somehow.
Yeah, and I'll try to start tracking this with building as well. So we'll have and like as these ADUs are coming through, typically I see them anyway, but I'll just make sure that it's coming through my office. So we'll kind of keep a running list of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, we also have to, just as a side note, it shouldn't be relatively easy to be able to track where they go because we have to keep a separate list that we can provide to UHLC at the drop of a hat. So
cool.
I've already talked to Ben about it and tried to come up with some different ways on how to help meet that requirement. There's a whole host of reasons I'm sure they're doing it, but we should be able to readily have or at least share that information.
Yeah. Why don't we go offline on that too? Because we can probably help on that. Cool.
All right. Any other comments on this agenda item? Any questions or comments from members of the public? All right, item number 9, matters not anticipated for the agenda. Does anybody have anything? Dan, don't leave us hanging. You always have something.
Nothing.
Well, Dan, this is a good way to promote your event on Patriots Day.
Yes.
No, we'll leave that up until we get the clearance on it.
You're cleared. Go ahead. You can promote it.
No, we're gonna have a mobile van come into the AmeriCal Civic Center on Patriots Day, and it's basically a museum from the Reese Across America. And it's gonna be open to the public. Everything's free, but it'll be there all day. So it'll be a good tie-in to upcoming Veterans Day, and we'll start having the sponsor sheets there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Cool.
Matthew, did you have anything for us? I saw you come on the screen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and I know I missed the public at the beginning, but I was wondering if there were any updates on, in the past, there was going to be some lighting on Richardson across from the Galvin for that crosswalk, I think. I don't have it exactly right, but it came up on a side conversation.
You say lighting,
and
street lighting,
like
pedestrian crosswalk.
Yeah, something like that. I was just checking to see if we could get an update on that, even if you don't have it now, just to get it maybe for the next round. Because the crossing on the Galvin on Main there is always problematic.
Yeah, we have a ton of improvements, obviously, through the TIP project that we're going to be doing. But that's
Coming up on.
That's years away.
Right.
I don't recall discussion on the lighting, but maybe I missed that meeting.
And I may not have it completely correct.
There was an island talked about and
Yeah.
right, shrinking that distance for people, but I don't remember lighting per se.
Yeah.
And again, I may have it wrong, but some sort of improvement for the everyday kind of spillover mess.
Right.
Bill and I had discussed maybe something temporary until that phase of the downtown project went through, but trying to come up with something temporary that would kind of help that area was, I think, difficult, Bill,
Are
to.
we talking RFPs maybe?
I think it was almost like temporary bump outs, but it just didn't seem like it would really
Yeah, there's not an easy good
fix.
solution, but it is really problematic, especially the detail there every day does a great job of trying to manage it, but the reality is the overlap afterwards. You've still got a lot of kids heading over to McDonald's or trying to get into that neighborhood. And like I was in the lot I was crossing from an event at the Galvin with a daughter on crutches, and someone almost mowed us down in the crosswalk, and they were irate that we were in the crosswalk. And I'm in a jacket that's got reflective all over it, and again, it's a problem. The other question, I guess, and it's been on my mind for years, but especially in the morning on the other side of the Galvin on North Ave, you've got traffic coming down there at 40 miles an hour plus. And I don't recall seeing any kind of school signs. There's the crosswalk sign just past the Galvin as you're heading towards the Main Street intersection.
Yep.
That gives a heads up. But by rights, that should be a lower speed limit in a school zone, right?
Yeah, so we have that. So we voted that already. So we ordered the signs for that, and that is in the queue with our highway group. So that's happening for actually all of the schools across town. So they've updated how you can create the school zone. So we're maximizing that 20 mile an hour zone at every location in town.
Super, thank you.
That'll be going up.
I haven't been hanging in the meetings, so I'm not necessarily informed.
That was a while back, and it was a little costly to do, and we just didn't have the budget, so it took a year for us to get the budget. It's in the queue for this year, and the guys will be on it.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn?
Do we have any of those orange cones like they have on Main Street down by the school, the Galvin?
What do you mean orange cone? Just
it says pedestrian.
Like a traffic cone? Oh, you mean like
the crosswalk?
You mean like the crossing sign, like yield to pedestrians?
Like about Check High.
I'm sure we do. Whereabouts do you think it, Dan? Sure, the
on Main Street, there's maybe 3 or 4 of them on Main Street, but further down, maybe by the Galvin, we could have some over by McDonald's.
Sure, I'll ask Joe. Bill, next time I talk to Joe, we'll see if he has any extras.
Yep, sounds good.
Makes sense. Kathleen, sorry I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. Just kind of a little add-on, something I wasn't necessarily like coming to the meeting to mention, but since we're talking about Galvin, in the morning drop off, I know it's crazy, but I'm often walking by there just as a pedestrian, and Bennett Street queues up with people waiting to turn right onto Main Street to get into the Galvin. There's a lot of queuing there in general. But what I'm finding is that a lot of days, someone who wants to come down Bennett and make a left will actually then cross over onto the other side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen someone coming from Main Street making a right onto Bennett, and they're heading onto another car that is driving on the wrong side of the street. And as a pedestrian, as I go to cross, my assumption is, all traffic coming down Bennett has stopped. And I've actually stepped out into the road to see a car coming at me that, again, is driving down the wrong side of the street. I know we've actually talked about this on another road in town as well. And I know there's not a lot that can really be done because people just drive like maniacs, but maybe even once or twice in coming weeks, just have an officer out there to just kind of say to people, like, you can't drive on the wrong side of the road just because there's a queue. Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to get out and make a left onto Main Street, so they just decide to cross onto the wrong side of the road. It's just a little scary, and I think about kids that I do see walking up Main Street, headed to the Galvin, and again, you're not looking for cars that are on the wrong side of the road, driving the wrong way, and I'm just afraid that a kid walking there is gonna get hit by a car that is not where they're supposed to be.
I agree. We'll definitely look into that. We had a similar issue a couple of years back at Westwater and North Ave, and ironically, it was parents that were late to the Galvin and decided to drive on the wrong side of the road when the train gates came down because they didn't have their kid to school on time. So that was embarrassing when I stopped them in the parking lot of the Galvin and made them even later. But it's not fair to put other kids at risk that are walking to school because they decided to be a couple minutes late. So we addressed that through some creative work with the parent newsletter and a few traffic stops, and it seems to have slowed down a little bit there. But that intersection's an issue as well with gridlock and the train gates coming down at the most inopportune time and all that. But we'll definitely look at that. I think the engineering changes that are planned for that area. It's so wide and undefined, that whole stretch of roadway there. I think what Bill has planned for it in the future will definitely help. But obviously that's a little ways away. But that'll help define that area and narrow it in certain areas and provide shorten the crossing distances, which I think is important. So some things to come from there.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
Yeah, maybe we want to add this as an agenda item to the next meeting, and we can kind of look into stuff, even if it's some line painting or something too, out there to try to narrow up the road a little bit, temporarily in the meantime. So if maybe we'll take a look at that area, where the parents are queuing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's parents queuing, right, to pick up their kids, and then people are going around it. Kathy, is that what you're saying?
So I'm seeing it's early in the morning with drop off.
Okay.
So people are stuck on Bennett waiting to make a right to get to the Galvin.
Oh, I see.
I assume these are not parents because they're coming down Bennett and they're wanting to make a left onto Main Street and go the other way, but they just don't want to wait for traffic to move.
Because like on my street, we have a bus stop at the end of the street, and all the parents park right in that one spot. So in order to even, unless you want to sit there and wait for the bus to come for everybody else's kid, you have to do that to get out of the street. So like I run into it every day. So I assumed it would have been for pickup where they needed a spot to kind of sit, to wait for the kids to come out or whatever it would be.
No, they're just waiting for traffic to move to get into the Galvin.
Yeah, that's not cool. So
no.
That sounds like a Joe issue. Sounds like you guys over there.
Yeah.
We will take a look.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. I like to hear a motion to adjourn unless we have anything else.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone. Adjourned at 9:35. I appreciate all of your work, and we will see you in April.
Michelle.
All right. Take care.
Have a great weekend, folks.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.